Hi, it's Glenda, and I'm excited to show you today how I made this pine tree divided swirl soaps. It is going to be part of my Christmas series soaps, and I wanted to show you first how I did the dividers. I'm shaping the core to be more of a triangular shape instead of circular, and to do that I pressed on one side to create a crease, and then I mark a spot on both sides of the bottom part of the core to create two additional folds. I had more success with the paper towel core because that one I had to cut it, and when I cut it closer to the height of the mold versus with the toilet paper ones that I didn't cut them at all, so it created a lot of tension with a rubber band that was holding it, and I think that affected the pour. For fragrance, I'm using honey fragrance formulator from Wholesale Supplies and also balsam pine from Wholesale Supplies. Balsam pine tends to give a very strong pine scent. It's very good, but it tends to lean more on the masculine side. And that was why I added the honey to add some sweetness to it and make it more neutral. So this is my recipe, and I need to add up the weight of the water and the lye so that I can measure it out of a small master batch that I did. Lately, I've been experimenting with a dual lye blend of 95% NaOl or sodium hydroxide and 5% potassium hydroxide, which is supposed to help with bubbles. I warm up the oils to 108 Fahrenheit or 42 Celsius, and the lye water solution is at 23 Celsius or 74 Fahrenheit, which for me is room temperature. I am going to add the lye water solution to the oils, and I'm going to stir it for about a minute or two. Once I introduce the stick blender, I only use it sparingly because I want to keep the soap batter as fluid as possible. From what I've been reading, this technique works best when the soap batter is fluid. And I'm a little bit concerned with my recipe because it has a lot of solid fats. So the goal will be to just burn it to emulsion. I'm checking periodically by lifting the stick blender and looking at the shaft to see if the batter has reached emulsion, and I'm also looking at it to see if it looks like it's a lighter colored and that there are not oil swirls divided or separated. When it looked like I was getting close to emulsion, I stopped using the stick blender and I continued stirring with a whisk. Then when it looked emulsified, I went ahead and added the fragrance. After blending the fragrance in, I went ahead and took the temperature of the batter to make sure that they were not causing any acceleration. I have used both of these fragrances in the past and I have not had any acceleration issues with them. However, sometimes when you blend two fragrances, that combination could cause something unpredicted. The temperature was 96 Fahrenheit, which seemed pretty normal, considering that my lye water solution is usually at room temperature or 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and the oils are usually warm up to 100 or 110 Fahrenheit. Now I'm going to divide the soap batter in all the containers that I have so that each one can be a different color. The only thing that I will do different here in the future is that I will increase my calculation of the green soap, which is going to be the pine tree, because I found that it seemed for the second soap I was short a little bit for it. I had lost some to spillage and also some just to the use of the dividers because some of the butter stays in the divider. I try to choose colors that will fit an overcast day or a somewhat snowy day. If you're curious about the micas that I use, I'm going to list them in the blog post, which will be linked below in the description box. Here comes the tricky part, the pouring of the soap. I knew I would have some leakage because there is not a tight seal at the bottom. My idea, though, to help this was to pour white soap quickly so that the pressure of it will compensate. Usually when you make a pipe divider swirl, you're doing it with a PVC pipe that you attach to the mold with cocoa butter. So it is sort of glue temporarily to the mold, and it allows you to pour outside of the pipe freely without any leakage. But I was willing to compromise this because I figure if I have any leakage, it's just going to be at the bottom, and then the top of the bar will be fine. Once most of the mold was full, I cut the rubber bands so that they will let go of the pressure they were doing in the middle of the mold, and then I was going to be able to keep adding the remaining part of the batter and also to do the swirl design. I pull out my toilet paper dividers carefully not to distort the shape that they had made into the soap, and as you can see, the first one and the second one seem to look better than the third and fourth one, where I had more leakage, and also on top it seems to have bled out of it. Then I'm using a small skewer, or actually more like a wooden stick, to try to make the tree shape. However, what I was discovering was that I was losing the tree shape. Like, my idea was to just pull from the center and then pull out and create the pattern of the tree. But as you can tell right there, it's not happening. It just seems as if the green portion of the soap is just sinking in, especially on the third one. Not on the second one. It looks more like the shape of a man with its arms spread out, or maybe like a octopus or something. Just try something similar to the Taiwan swirl, just to go, or feather swirl maybe, just go from side to side, and I redid it, and that gave me a better pine tree shape, as you can see. You know how sometimes you wish you had a do-over moment where you could avoid doing the mistakes you just did and practice something new and get a better result? Well, with this soap, I had just that. I had a do-over moment since I was going to be making a second soap identical to it. And now, armed with my just previous past experience, I did some modifications to this one. It may not be very noticeable. However, I did move my dividers to the center of the soap so that they wouldn't be necessarily touching the bottom of the mold. Initially, I wanted them to be touching the bottom of the mold so that it will look like that's the floor and the pine trees are coming out of it. But that was preventing the rubber band from keeping a tight seal on them. And then I also poured both the green and the white at the same time. I think it also helped that by this point the soap was at a light trace stage, so it was a bit thicker, which meant it wasn't as prone to leaking at the bottom. And also, when cutting the rubber bands, it's best to do it from the side that's closer to me. It may look like I'm pulling the dividers faster than it is in real life. I have it at a 2 times speed. So this was actually a very slow procedure because I didn't want to mess up. And as far as the swirl, I learned that it was best to start it at the bottom of the triangular shape, unlike I did it on this very first one. And to start also at the base, a little bit in the inside of the triangular shape. I waited 3 days before attempting to unmold. Since I had poured this when it was very fluid, it took longer to harden up enough to be removed from the mold. I'm going to cut this horizontally. So first I have to divide it by the width of the bars. Then I'm gonna cut each fourth in half so that I can get 2 bars out of each one. And I'm really happy how they turn out. You can see it does resemble a pine tree and it's going through the whole bar, so I'm very happy about it. Now, as far as the very first mold, where it was my learning soap. In that one, about half of the bars were not as successful as the second batch. However, the remaining half seemed to have decent results, so I'm still happy with them anyway. But anyway, we reached the end of the video, and I thank you for visiting my channel. I hope to see you next week. Bye!